If you worked in a Hollywood wardrobe department in the 1930s, there was one job nobody wanted: opening this girl's costume trunks. Why? Because inside were dance outfits soaked in sweat, sealed away for months, and according to this particular actress, washing them would ruin the magic. The habit begins. She wasn't just good, she was relentless. Every move had to be perfect. Every routine had to land flawlessly. And if she found something that worked, she held on to it for dear life. Her rise in the 1930s wasn't just about talent, it was about work ethic. Hollywood's top dancers trained hard, but Ginger Rogers trained harder. When she teamed up with Fred Astaire, she entered a new level of intensity. Astaire was famous for demanding perfection. He'd force retakes for hours until a routine felt effortless. Rogers didn't just keep up, she pushed herself even further. Dancing in heels? Standard. Rehearsing until her feet bled? No complaints. She wasn't going to be outperformed. But she started noticing something. When a dress fit just right, when the fabric moved the way she needed, everything clicked. The right costume could make or break a performance. That's when her superstition started. Most actors saw costumes as just clothes. Rogers saw them as lucky charms. If she nailed a performance in a particular dress, she refused to let it go. Washing it? Out of the question. She believed the sweat, the exhaustion, the energy of that perfect performance was locked into the fabric. At first, no one questioned it. Wardrobe teams set aside her favorite costumes, assuming it was just preference. But then, she stopped returning them. She'd store them unwashed, sealed away in personal trunks, convinced that keeping them untouched preserved the magic. The studio noticed. Costume designers started whispering about the growing collection. Some joked about it, others weren't laughing. When a missing costume held up production, whispers turned into frustration. Hollywood was full of strange rituals. Actors carried lucky coins, avoided saying certain words on set, even refused to wear certain colors. But this was different. Rogers wasn't just holding onto a piece of clothing, she was building a collection of sweat-soaked memories. At first, people laughed it off. Then, they realized she wasn't joking. The first costume standoff. At first, Rogers' superstition was just an odd quirk, but as her collection of lucky costumes grew, it started causing real problems on set. The first major incident happened during the filming of Top Hat, 1935. Rogers had worn a specific blue feathered gown for a rehearsal and nailed every step. She insisted on wearing the same dress for the actual shoot, but there was one problem. The costume department needed to clean and adjust it before filming. Ginger Rogers refused. The wardrobe team pushed back. The dress had taken a beating during rehearsals, and the delicate feathers were falling apart. It needed repairs, but Rogers wasn't budging. She was convinced that even the slightest alteration could throw off her performance. Fred Astaire, known for his own perfectionism, wasn't happy. He had spent weeks rehearsing with her in that dress, and now they were on the verge of delaying production. The director, Mark Sandrich, had to step in. He tried reasoning with Rogers, explaining that the camera would pick up every stray feather and that the studio wouldn't allow her to wear something in less than perfect condition. Rogers didn't care. She argued that the weight, the feel, even the scent of the unwashed dress helped her stay in sync with the routine. She didn't trust a fresh version. If the studio wanted the best performance, she needed that exact dress untouched. In the end, the studio made a deal. Minimal cleaning, no alterations, and no washing. The compromise kept the production moving, but it sent a message. Rogers' costume superstition wasn't just a harmless habit, she was willing to fight for it. The incident left wardrobe staff frustrated and baffled, but it wasn't the last time her obsession got in the way. Over time, it only got stranger. The dresses started disappearing entirely, locked away in her personal collection, and studio executives started taking notice. This wasn't just about luck anymore, it was about control. The vanishing costumes. At first, Ginger Rogers' costume habit seemed harmless. She liked to keep certain outfits unwashed, believing they held the energy of past performances. But as time passed, something strange started happening. Costumes went missing. By the late 1930s, wardrobe staff whispered about it. Costumes that should have been returned were nowhere to be found. At first, they assumed it was a mistake. Maybe a mix-up in storage. Maybe someone misplaced a gown. But then it kept happening, and one dress, in particular, set off alarm bells. It was during the filming of Carefree, 1938. Rogers wore a sleek silver dress for a dance sequence, a nightmare for the costume team. The fabric was delicate, wrinkled under the lights, and soaked up sweat during takes. After every scene, assistants had to steam it out fast before the next shot. The dress required constant care. Then, when filming wrapped, it vanished. Wardrobe staff searched everywhere. Dressing rooms, storage closets, even Rogers' trailer. Nothing. The head of wardrobe reportedly went to the producers. They weren't just worried about the dress. This wasn't the first time an outfit had disappeared. Rumors flew that Rogers had taken it, but no one wanted to confront her. She was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Accusing her of stealing costumes, that could end a career. Instead, the producers allegedly met with her in private. What happened in that meeting? No one knows for sure, but the story goes that Rogers didn't deny anything. Instead, she explained that some costumes couldn't be replaced. They weren't just fabric. They held something more. Washing them, altering them, or letting someone else wear them would erase that magic. The studio, according to whispers, was not amused. Costumes were expensive, and missing wardrobe pieces meant extra costs and delays. Some claimed the studio began making duplicates of important costumes, expecting that Rogers might take the originals. But there was no stopping her. She wasn't just keeping costumes for luck anymore. She was collecting them. And soon, the growing pile of sweat-soaked, locked-away dresses would become a real problem. Wardrobe staff had no idea what was coming next, but they wouldn't like it. The trunks no one wanted to open. By the early 1940s, Rogers' superstition had gone beyond missing costumes. Now, the problem wasn't just that she kept them, it was how she stored them. Wardrobe staff dreaded one thing above all: opening her personal trunks. By this point, Rogers' collection of sweat-soaked, unwashed costumes had grown. She refused to let them be cleaned after major performances, convinced that doing so would wash away the energy that made them special. But instead of hanging them neatly in a wardrobe, she sealed them inside trunks and rarely touched them again. At first, people assumed she was just sentimental. Plenty of actors kept mementos from their biggest films. But then came the reports. When her trunks were finally opened, the smell was overwhelming. Wardrobe assistants whispered about the state of the gowns inside. Some were stiff with dried sweat. Others showed clear signs of deterioration from being locked away for too long. Silk and delicate fabrics didn't handle time, heat, or humidity well. One particularly talked about incident supposedly happened when Rogers requested an old costume for a publicity photo shoot. A wardrobe assistant was sent to retrieve it from one of her trunks. According to crew members who later shared the story, when the trunk was opened, the smell was so strong that the assistant gagged and had to step back. Rogers didn't seem to mind. To her, these dresses were sacred relics of past performances. It wasn't about how they looked or smelled. It was about what they represented. By now, her habit was no secret among Hollywood insiders. People working on set joked about the cursed costumes, but no one dared to challenge her directly. She was too powerful, too respected, and too set in her ways. Studios may have tried to work around her obsession, but Rogers wasn't changing. If anything, she was doubling down. If a dress had brought her success, it stayed with her forever, sealed in a trunk, untouched, unwashed. Some found it odd, others found it disgusting, but no one could ignore it, and soon the whispers would turn into full-blown complaints. The breaking point. By the mid-1940s, people in Hollywood knew about the trunks, the unwashed gowns, and the lingering smell that wardrobe staff dreaded. But for a long time, no one pushed back. She was a box office queen, and studios weren't about to challenge their golden star over a few missing dresses. Then came the day when they had no choice. According to whispers among costume staff, the breaking point happened during the production of one of her later musicals. A key costume, a gown Rogers had worn for weeks, vanished overnight. It wasn't on the racks in storage or in the cleaning department. It was gone. This time, the loss was a big deal. The costume wasn't just an extra. It was designed specifically for continuity. Without it, they couldn't reshoot a scene if needed. The studio panicked. Producers allegedly called an emergency meeting with the wardrobe team, demanding to know who had misplaced the dress. It didn't take long before someone quietly pointed toward Rogers. The problem? No one wanted to accuse her outright. Some claimed a studio executive was sent to ask her politely if she had kept the dress. If that meeting happened, there are no official records of it. But according to insiders, Rogers was completely unfazed. She didn't argue, she didn't deny it. She simply refused to hand it back. It was her dress now, and no one was going to convince her otherwise. The studio had two options. First, confront their biggest star and risk conflict. Second, silently remake the dress and pretend nothing happened. They chose the second option. The studio's silent strategy. By the late 1940s, Ginger Rogers was still a major star, but behind the scenes, studio executives were done playing along. They had given in too many times, costumes kept disappearing, wardrobe staff were frustrated, and now, productions had to be planned around her superstition. But no one wanted to challenge her directly. Rogers was still one of Hollywood's most bankable actresses, and causing a feud with their leading lady wasn't an option. So, instead of confronting her, the studio adapted. According to rumors from insiders, the wardrobe department quietly started making duplicates of every costume Rogers wore. If she became attached to a dress, they let her take it, but they always had a backup ready. It wasn't just about superstition anymore. It was about control. Some costumers allegedly went as far as aging the duplicates, adding fake wear and slight fabric imperfections, so they'd look like the originals. If Rogers believed a dress had absorbed the energy of a perfect performance, the wardrobe team made sure she never noticed the swap. It wasn't a perfect system. There were still times when she demanded a specific dress and wouldn't accept anything else. In those cases, they had to stall production, delay scenes, or secretly remake the piece to match. It was exhausting, frustrating, and expensive. But it was better than arguing with Rogers. Some whispered that the executives even built costume replacement costs into film budgets, treating it like an unavoidable expense, just like renting a set or hiring extras. But no matter how much planning they did, one thing they couldn't control was time. Hollywood was changing. The 1950s were bringing new stars, new trends, and a new era of filmmaking. Rogers was still a household name, but her dominance was fading. And as her power in the industry weakened, so did the studio's patience. The turning tide. By the early 1950s, the Hollywood machine was shifting fast, and Ginger Rogers wasn't the unstoppable force she once was. New faces like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn were stealing the spotlight, musicals were evolving, and Rogers, now in her 40s, wasn't the automatic first choice for lead roles anymore. And when her power faded, so did the studio's patience. For years, executives had quietly worked around her costume superstition, making duplicates, planning for missing wardrobe pieces, and keeping production moving without making a scene. But now, Rogers wasn't the studio's top priority anymore. And suddenly, the rules started changing. Her first real wake-up call reportedly came when she wrapped a film and tried to keep a costume, only to be told no. That had never happened before. Some crew members later claimed that Rogers didn't take it well. She had spent decades getting her way, and now the studio was treating her like any other actress. But this time, there were no secret backup plans, no quiet accommodations, just a firm refusal. The industry itself had changed too. Studios were tightening budgets, cutting unnecessary costs, and cracking down on waste. Costume departments weren't as willing to remake outfits just because an actress wanted to take the original home. and without Rogers sitting at the very top of the Hollywood hierarchy, no one was afraid to push back anymore. She wasn't being pushed out completely, she was still a respected name, but the days of her superstition running the show were over. The Forgotten Trunks. As Ginger Rogers' career slowed, so did the whispers about her vanishing costumes. The studios had moved on, the costume departments had stopped indulging her habits, and Hollywood's biggest names were now younger, fresher stars. But one question remained: what happened to the trunks? The gowns weren't neatly stored in a glass case like museum pieces. They were stuffed into trunks, sealed away, some reportedly untouched for years. Crew members who had seen the inside of those trunks never forgot the smell, the result of decades-old fabric mixed with sweat and neglect. By the late 1950s, Rogers' screen time had dwindled, and she began spending more time away from the industry. She still worked occasionally, but the days of commanding full control over costumes and wardrobe were over. Some former Hollywood insiders later claimed that when Rogers finally opened some of the trunks after years, she found dresses in a shocking state. The fabrics had stiffened, some had yellowed beyond repair, and others were falling apart at the seams. But she never spoke about it publicly. Unlike other stars who auctioned off their old costumes or donated them to studios and museums, Rogers kept most of them private. Over time, some pieces surfaced in estate sales, but many were never accounted for. Some speculated that she quietly disposed of the ones that had degraded beyond saving, while others believed she held on to them until the end. What started as a superstition had turned into a collection, and by the time it was over, it was unclear even to Rogers what she had been trying to preserve. The costumes resurface. For years, Ginger Rogers' lucky costumes remained out of sight, locked away in storage. But as time passed, pieces of her collection started to reappear, some in auctions, others in unexpected places. By the 1980s, Hollywood memorabilia had become a hot market. Collectors, museums, and private buyers were desperate for anything tied to classic stars. Rogers, known for her elegance and timeless performances, had plenty of interest. But her costumes, that was another story. Some of the dresses that surfaced were pristine, well preserved by costume archives or studio storage. Others, however, showed signs of age, rumored to be from Rogers' personal collection. Reports described stiff, discolored fabric, faded sequins, and faint traces of sweat stains. Some pieces were in such poor condition that experts questioned whether they could even be restored. One particularly talked about auction featured a gown linked to Top Hat, 1935, one of Rogers' most famous films. The listing hinted that the dress had been stored away for decades, possibly by Rogers herself. While the authenticity of these claims was debated, collectors still jumped at the chance to own a piece of Hollywood history. But not all of her costumes made it to collectors. Some disappeared entirely. Whether they were lost, discarded, or still hidden away in private collections remains a mystery. The myth and the mystery. Even after Ginger Rogers was gone, the stories about her vanishing costumes never faded. Decades later, collectors, historians, and old Hollywood insiders still debated the truth. How many dresses did she actually take? Were the rumors exaggerated? And more importantly, where were they now? Some pieces had resurfaced in auctions, turning up in unexpected places. A few landed in museum collections, carefully restored and displayed. Others disappeared completely, lost to time, or hidden away in private estates. The dresses she had stashed for years, the ones she believed carried the energy of her best performances, were now just fragile relics of a Hollywood long gone. Despite the mystery, one thing was clear. Rogers' superstition wasn't just a Hollywood rumor. There were too many stories from wardrobe staff, too many whispered accounts from costume designers who struggled to keep track of missing gowns, and while no one could prove every tale, the pattern was impossible to ignore. But why did she do it? Was it really about luck, or was it something deeper? Some believed it was her way of holding on to success. Rogers had spent decades fighting for respect in an industry that rarely gave women control. Dance was precise, fleeting, gone the second a performance ended. But a costume? That was something she could keep. Others saw it as a form of control in an unpredictable business. If she could preserve the exact conditions of a perfect performance, maybe she could repeat it. Maybe she could stay on top forever. But time doesn't work that way. Hollywood moved on, and so did Rogers. In the end, the costumes, the ones she fought to keep, the ones she never washed, the ones she believed were more than just fabric, became nothing more than forgotten trunks and faded silk. Still, even now, somewhere in a collector's archive, a museum vault, or a private estate, one of Ginger Rogers' lucky costumes still exists. And if the rumors were true, it might still smell like the past. There's no great way to say this. Some of our favorite Golden Age Hollywood stars were weird and freaky, but there is no way to know this if all you remember are their works on screen. So let's put a microscope on their lives and reveal some of the most disgusting and depraved rumors about some of these stars. Are these rumors true or just exaggerated gist? We'll let you be the judge of that. The toy rumor. In the 1920s, two men were the product of intense debates about who was the most handsome and the best on-screen lover. Nobody had the slightest clue that both men were gay, but as their careers began, they too didn't seem to realize their sexuality. In the early golden era of Hollywood, anybody who looked anything other than Anglo or Northern European was cast to play everything from Italians to Spaniards, Greeks, Hungarians, Arabs, and Persians. For a very long time, two men, Rudolph Valentino and Ramon Novarro, were the screen's greatest Latin lovers, and just by looking at them, you'd know why. They were both tall, dark, handsome, and exotic-looking. The 1920s audience loved that, but the interesting thing here is that, as far as Hollywood history is concerned, where two celebrities seem to be popular, only one would be the real fan favorite. And for a time in the U.S., Valentino was the biggest box office draw, with films such as The Sheik, in which he played an African sheik. But Mexican-born Novarro was rapidly gaining on his Italian-born rival. However, on the other end, Novarro had shown a much greater acting range than Valentino in movies such as The Arab, in which he played a deserting Bedouin soldier, and Scaramouche, in which he played a French swashbuckler. So, how did their paths finally cross? Well, it all started with the film A Sainted Devil in 1924. Although Valentino was the star of the film, Novarro had a smaller, uncredited role, and while they may have met before, this film is their earliest known collaboration, and this brings us to the rumors. Let's face it, Ramon and Valentino were known as Latin lovers, incredibly intense on screen, and commanded a type of charm that showed they were in touch with their feminine side. As a result of their flamboyance, even off-screen, rumors began to spread that they were secretly gay. So, was there some truth to this? Well, for Valentino, there may have been some truth about his homosexuality because for a very long time he had been seen with men in compromising situations. But soon, he was linked with his colleague, Ramon Novarro. As you can imagine, the news had a field day with this rumor. And one interviewer even went ahead to report that Novarro had secretly admitted to Cary Grant that the rumors of his affair with Valentino were true. This brings us to yet another question. Where does the male bedroom toy come in all of these? According to the rumors, Valentino had gifted Novarro a model of a male member. As shocking and juicy as that piece of information is, it gets even more interesting. This model member wasn't just ordinary, it was said to be modeled after Novarro's himself. This gift was so his colleague and secret lover would not be too lonely when they were away filming movies and busy with work. It was said that Novarro kept this model tool on his nightstand and saw it as one of his most treasured properties. Now, as far as rumors go, this was an incredibly inappropriate one, and the public leaned into it, pairing both of them together and enjoying all the fruits that came with it. But sadly, on the 30th of October in 1968, Novarro's life came to a brutal end when two men approached him offering to be intimate with him. Before this, Novarro had not been open with his orientation, but unknown to him, these men were actually robbers and beat him till he drew his last breath. This was by far a tragic end to such a shocking rumor, but this next rumor is actually harder to believe. Marilyn Monroe had bad hygiene. Remember Marilyn Monroe, one of the most popular actresses and celebrated sex symbol of the Golden Age? Well, it's hard to imagine, but according to some of the rumors at the time behind closed doors, she was incredibly dirty and unhygienic. Sources suggest that Monroe had a tendency to avoid bathing for days on end, which led to body odor issues. As a matter of fact, her second husband, Joe DiMaggio, reportedly complained about her lack of bathing. He found it disgusting and couldn't believe that someone so beautiful could be so dirty. Still find it hard to believe? Well, it appears that it wasn't only her husband who complained about this. Monroe's former housekeeper, Lena Pepitone, mentioned in her memoir that Monroe would often wear the same dirty clothes for days and leave piles of dirty dishes in her bedroom. But it gets even worse. It was also said that Monroe would eat in bed and push the leftovers under the sheets for the maids to clean in the morning. But as with every shocking rumor, there are also those who refuse to believe it. Some close friends and confidants of Monroe, such as Jane Russell, who co-starred with her in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, described her as very clean. So which should we believe? Separating fact from fiction can be a dirty business sometimes, but speaking of dirty, this next rumor comes to mind. Joan Crawford did an adult film. The year before she got her start, however, Crawford did another project called The Casting Couch, and it was her first ever on-screen work. And in case you haven't guessed it yet, The Casting Couch was a soft-core adult film. But if you want more details, then this should get you going. In the film, aspiring actors decide to attend a Hollywood party in a bit to fulfill their dreams of being stars, and in this party, they also act out scenes from various films for the pleasure of the audience. Just when the storyline begins to get interesting, the actors begin to take off their clothes and explicit intimacy begins to go on in the back rooms of the party. In this film, Crawford plays a girl called Gloria. Just like the other actors, she too wanted to make it in Hollywood, but there was something more seductive about her. Thankfully, a year later, Crawford found success in mainstream Hollywood, but this is not where the story ends. According to the Daily Mail and biographers who have studied Crawford's life, it appears that was not the only adult film Crawford featured in. As a matter of fact, The Casting Couch was just one of several adult films that Crawford appeared in, including Velvet Lips, The Plumber, and She Knows Best. But more so, rumors were that Crawford enjoyed these films, and they were what shot her to fame in the Hollywood we have come to know and love. But Crawford was not the only one with sensual rumors. You'll be shocked by this next one. Marlene Dietrich liked girls. Have you ever heard of the phrase sewing circle? Well, if you've not, then you're in for a treat. It was a term used by Marlene Dietrich, and you'd never guess what it was code for. A closeted lesbian and bisexual scene in Hollywood, of which she was also a member. That's right, Marlene loved women, and there were a lot of reports of how she would seek out female attention and be intimate with them. However, according to reports, Marlene was also a very skilled lover. But let's hear reports from others, shall we? The late actor Klaus Kinski described something rather gripping in his autobiography. Apparently, his own wife, Edith Edwards, had once been intimate with Dietrich, and for some reason, he got the full gist of what happened from her. So when he wrote it down in words, it stunned everyone who read it. He wrote, "Marlene tore down Edith's undies backstage in a Berlin theater and using just her mouth, brought Edith to climax." Now that's intense. Betty Grable insured her legs. Betty Grabe was by far one of the most beautiful actresses of Hollywood's golden age. She had an amazing smile and gorgeous hair, but what really caught people's attention were her legs. They were long, shapely, and famous for being the sexiest part of her body. Apparently, all the comments and compliments got to her so much, she decided to do something daring. For a whopping $1 million, her studio, 20th Century Fox, decided to insure her legs, and it became more of a symbol of appeal after that. So it is no surprise that she became a pinup girl. On one hand, it seemed like it was just because she loved her legs so much, but in reality, the rumors began to swirl that it was just a marketing tool. You see, her legs were now known as the $1 Million Legs and had become more than just a nickname. They were a legend. The insurance policy was designed to protect the studio's investment in their star, but it also served as a publicity stunt, ensuring that Betty Grable remained in the spotlight. This was, after all, the golden age of Hollywood. a time when studios crafted their stars' images with precision and promoted them with relentless fervor. Why was this such a terrible thing? Well, because soon after, a darker rumor began to swirl. Whispers in Hollywood suggested that the insurance policy might have been inflated, a figure far beyond what was necessary, and that it was part of a more sinister scheme to portray her legs as more valuable than it was, simply to twist people's perceptions. According to the gossip, there were plans to collect on the policy under dubious circumstances, hinting at an insurance scam involving Grable herself. The idea that the wholesome all-American star might be entangled in such a plot was shocking and compelling. Yet, like so many Hollywood rumors, this one was never substantiated. No official investigation took place, and no legal action was ever pursued. Olive Thomas's syphilis saga. Olive Thomas was a stunning silent film star whose name might have been lost to time if not for the mysterious circumstances surrounding her death. In the early 1900s, silent films were all the rage, but many of those old reels have deteriorated or disappeared over the years. Because of this, Olive is remembered less for her acting and more for the tragedy that struck when she was just 25 years old. It all started in 1916 when Olive met Jack Pickford, the younger brother of Mary Pickford, one of the biggest stars of the silent film era. Their romance moved quickly, and just 8 months after they met, Olive and Jack were married. It seemed like a fairy tale, but things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Jack may have called Olive the love of his life, but that didn't stop him from chasing other women. By 1918, their marriage was already in trouble. In a desperate attempt to win Olive back, Jack joined the Navy, thinking it might impress her and rekindle their love. But instead of fixing their problems, Jack found himself in the middle of a scandal. He got involved with a lieutenant who was arranging cushy, safe assignments for wealthy soldiers. For a price. When they were caught, both men were court-martialed. Jack escaped with only a dishonorable discharge, but the damage to his reputation and his marriage was done. Despite their rocky relationship, Olive and Jack decided to give their marriage another shot. In 1920, they took a second honeymoon, sailing from Paris to New York in an attempt to rekindle their romance. But instead of a fresh start, tragedy struck. On the night of September 9th, the couple returned to their hotel room in Paris after a night out. It was around 3 a.m. when they arrived back, and just a couple of hours later, Jack made a frantic call to the hotel staff saying that Olive had gone overboard with her medication. The details of what happened in that hotel room are still unclear, but the medication Olive took was believed to be bichloride of mercury, a common treatment for syphilis at the time. Rumors flew. Some people said Olive had discovered that Jack had syphilis from his many affairs and had accidentally taken his medication, mistaking it for something else. Others whispered that she might have intentionally gone overboard out of despair. There were even darker theories. Some believed Jack had something to do with it so he could collect her life insurance policy. Olive clung to life for 4 agonizing days before she passed away. The coroner eventually ruled her death as accidental, but the mystery has never been fully resolved. What really happened to Olive Thomas in that hotel room remains one of Hollywood's most enduring and tragic tales. Clara Bow was intimate with dogs. Even when you think about it by today's standards, the rumors around Clara Bow are pretty messed up. The reports around her ran for 3 weeks on Coast Reporter, and it claimed that she was a substance and alcohol lover and unrepentant gambler. But that was not all. The rumors dug into her private life, and a lot of nasty and dirty things were brought to light. Some of them are easily believable. Others are just plain bizarre that it's hard to believe. For one, some of the rumors were that Clara was the mistress of multiple men at the same time. She was also reportedly caught being intimate in public. But if you think you've heard it all, think again, because these reports went on to claim that Clara would also engage in threesomes and had a sort of addiction that would make her sleep with women when men were not available. And if you're wondering what she does when there is no man or woman at all, the reports are a bit disturbing. According to the rumors, when she needed to sleep with someone and no one was available, she would turn to her dog and perform all sorts of nasty and terrible things with it. All of these rumors started when Clara had a falling out with her assistant, and this begrudged secretary decided to leak all of her private documents. The media lives for things like this. and they ran with all the stories found in the private files, but it's possible they exaggerated a bit just to spark interest in the public. Regardless, Clara's career was never the same again. Charles Laughton likes human feces. He was a British-American actor, director, producer, and screenwriter, but he had the most unimaginable fetish at the time: scat fetish. This brings us to the question, how on earth does a rumor like this make it to the light, since it is so private? Well, it would not have been possible without a man named Scotty Bowers. In 2012, Scotty Bowers released a book titled Full Service: My Adventures in Hollywood and the Sex Lives of the Stars. And this book is filled with so many atrocities and secret engagements and acts that Hollywood stars of the late 40s to the 80s were involved in. You see, Bowers was what you'll call an arranger, and what he did was pretty simple once you grasp the concept. Imagine you were a Hollywood star in those times. If you had any sort of weird fantasy of any sort and you needed to make it a reality, all you needed to do was call Scotty Bowers and he would make it happen. On top of that, you can be rest assured of confidentiality. Until he released his book, that is. One of the depraved acts recorded in this book involved Charles Laughton and how he called on Bowers to provide him with a young man to fulfill his fantasy. Now, Scotty doesn't judge, so without batting an eye, he obliges and comes to Charles's house with the boy. What happened next was a little weird. Laughton took the boy to the bathroom, and a little while later, both of them came out, but the young man was looking a bit stunned. Bowers was trying to make sense of it. But then he was Laughton pick up some bread and spread a brownish substance across it. Bowers had seen a lot in his time, but when he realized what was going on, his eyes widened in shock. The brown substance was the young man's feces, and after spreading it on his bread, Laughton ate it. Tallulah Bankhead's strange preferences. Exhibitionism. It's a preference of some sort where one gets off by exposing themselves to others and watching others gaze at their bare body. And the rumors were that Bankhead was into this. You see, Tallulah Bankhead was more than just an actress with a deep, smoky voice. She was a true character, both on and off the stage. And her true character was shown at parties she would go to. People whispered that she loved stripping at parties, not just for shock value, but because she got a real thrill from it. According to the gossip, Tallulah got off on watching other people's reactions to her bare body. The more people stared, the more she enjoyed it. This wasn't just idle talk. There are plenty of stories about her outrageous behavior at Hollywood gatherings. At one party, she supposedly started shedding her clothes right in the middle of a conversation, leaving everyone around her stunned. On another occasion, she reportedly stood on a table, completely nude, while guests watched in disbelief. Some of these stories were even confirmed by well-known figures who were there to witness her antics. For example, actress Estelle Winwood, one of Tallulah's closest friends, often spoke about Tallulah's love for shocking people. Winwood would tell stories about how Tallulah seemed to come alive when all eyes were on her, especially when she was bare. Actor Burgess Meredith, too, once recalled a party where Tallulah exposed herself without a second thought as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Now, no one knows for sure whether these stories were completely true or just exaggerated over time, but they have already been written in Tallulah's history books and will live on forever. Errol Flynn's famous easing. Errol Flynn was more than just a prominent Hollywood actor. He was the epitome of the charming yet notorious leading man whose real-life exploits often overshadowed his cinematic performances. Born in Tasmania, Australia, Flynn burst onto the Hollywood scene in the 1930s and quickly became synonymous with the swashbuckling hero, thanks to films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. His on-screen charisma and athletic prowess captivated audiences, but it was his off-screen lifestyle that truly made him a legend. Flynn's striking good looks and effortless charm made him a favorite among fans and a frequent subject of tabloid headlines. He was known for his love of adventure, both in his professional and personal life, often indulging in activities that ranged from sailing and boxing to engaging in whirlwind romances. His penchant for living life on the edge earned him a reputation for being debaucherous and unpredictable, qualities that both fascinated and scandalized the public and the Hollywood establishment. One of the most infamous stories that highlight Flynn's wild nature involves a shocking incident with a journalist, a tale that has become part of Hollywood folklore. During an interview at his opulent Hollywood Hills residence, Flynn reportedly grew bored with the standard line of questioning. Seeking to inject some excitement into the encounter, or perhaps simply acting on a mischievous impulse, he abruptly unzipped his pants and began urinating into the fireplace right in front of the astonished journalist. The act was as audacious as it was unexpected. Turning to his speechless guest with a sly grin, Flynn allegedly quipped, "How's that for a headline?" This brazen display perfectly encapsulated his disregard for convention and his flair for the dramatic. This incident was not an isolated event, but rather a reflection of Flynn's overall approach to life. He often flouted societal norms and Hollywood's unspoken rules, engaging in behavior that ranged from the merely rebellious to the outright scandalous. His actions frequently landed him in hot water with studio executives and sometimes even the law, but they also solidified his image as a man who refused to be tamed or restrained by expectations. Flynn's carefree attitude and penchant for living life to the fullest made him a true original, a star whose real-life adventures were as thrilling as the roles he portrayed on screen. He became a symbol of a bygone era in Hollywood, one characterized by larger-than-life personalities and a willingness to push the boundaries of acceptable behavior. His stories have been recounted and embellished over the years, contributing to a legend that continues to captivate audiences long after his passing. 10 actors, 10 stomach-turning stories. One was bullied so badly they lost their voice. Another was paralyzed mid-career. You've seen their movies. But these facts, you've never heard. Jim Carrey slept in a van. Long before the red carpets and $20 million paychecks, Jim Carrey was broke and living in a van. His dad lost his job when Jim was a teenager. With no money for rent, the whole family moved into a beat-up VW camper. They parked it behind a factory where his father once worked. It wasn't a road trip, it was survival. Jim dropped out of school at 16 to help. He worked 8-hour night shifts as a janitor, mopping floors and scrubbing toilets. During the day, he'd try to catch sleep in the van while trucks rumbled by. Things got so bad, he said he once lived off bologna sandwiches for weeks. He described himself as angry and sad during that time, but even then he was writing jokes and doing impressions. He started performing stand-up in Toronto clubs. At first, he bombed hard. One club even banned him after a rough set. But he didn't stop. He kept going back night after night, working on his act. At one point, he wrote himself a fake $10 million check for acting services rendered and kept it in his wallet. Total manifestation energy before that was even a thing. By the early 80s, he finally got a break on a sketch show called In Living Color. It wasn't just a gig, it changed his life. That van, history, the paycheck, real, and the $10 million check? He cashed it years later for Dumb and Dumber. Carrey once said, "You can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love." Coming from a guy who scrubbed toilets by night and bombed on stage by day, that line hits different. His story isn't just about being poor, it's about pushing through when nothing goes right, and somehow still being funny through it all. Charlize Theron's family tragedy. Before she was a household name, she lived on a remote farm in South Africa with a violent alcoholic father. Her childhood wasn't glamorous, it was terrifying. Her father, Charles, was unpredictable and dangerous when drunk. And he was drunk a lot. The worst night came in 1991, when Charlize was 15. Her father came home in a rage carrying a gun. He fired into her bedroom door. Her mother, Gerda, acted fast. She grabbed her own weapon and fatally shot him in what police later ruled as self-defense. No charges were filed. Charlize said it changed her forever. She didn't talk about it publicly for years. When she finally did, she told NPR, "I survived that and I'm proud of that." She's also spoken about the trauma of living with an abusive parent, saying, "You just don't know how to deal with it as a kid." After that night, Gerda pushed her to leave South Africa. Charlize entered a modeling contest, won, and ended up in Europe. From there, she moved to New York, then Los Angeles. She was 19, broke, and barely spoke English. One of her lowest moments came at a bank in Hollywood. She couldn't cash a check for a modeling gig and caused a scene. A talent manager standing in line saw the whole thing and handed her his business card. That random meltdown led to her first acting opportunity. From there, she hustled. Roles came slowly at first. Bit parts, mostly eye candy. But Charlize wanted more. She trained, studied, and took risks. In 2003, she shocked everyone by gaining weight, shaving her eyebrows, and fully transforming into serial killer Aileen Wuornos for Monster. She won the Oscar 2004 for Best Actress. That win wasn't just about acting. It was proof that everything, her trauma, her fight to survive, her risk-taking, had built something powerful. She wasn't just another star. She was a survivor who turned pain into fuel. Samuel L. Jackson hid his addiction. He didn't always have that cool, commanding energy. In his early years, he was struggling hard, especially behind the scenes. Long before Pulp Fiction, he was broke, frustrated, and hooked on drugs. In the 1970s and early 80s, Jackson was active in New York theater. But offstage, he was using cocaine and drinking every day. He later admitted he was a functioning addict, showing up to rehearsals and sets high but still getting the job done. At home, things were falling apart. His wife, LaTanya Richardson, and their young daughter were watching him spiral. The turning point came when they found him unconscious in the kitchen, surrounded by paraphernalia. That same day, they checked him into rehab. Jackson didn't fight it. He knew he needed help. He got clean, and then, almost immediately, he landed a role in Jungle Fever as a crack addict named Gator. The irony? He had just gotten out of detox. That performance felt disturbingly real for a reason. He was acting out what he'd just lived through. Critics noticed. Director Spike Lee gave him the part, and Jackson stole the show. The role earned him a special award from the Cannes Film Festival, created just for him. From there, things exploded. Pulp Fiction dropped in 1994, and suddenly Jackson wasn't just working, he was iconic. Jules Winfield became one of the most quoted characters in movie history. But Jackson stayed grounded. More than 30 years sober, he's never relapsed. "The moment I went to rehab, I was done," he said in interviews. Since then, he's worked non-stop. Die Hard 3, The Negotiator, Jackie Brown, Star Wars, Marvel. He's one of the highest-grossing actors of all time, with over $27 billion in box office credits. But all of it, the awards, the money, the fame, started when he chose to get clean. Not because of Hollywood, because of his family, because he wanted to live, and he never looked back. Viola Davis faced real poverty. She didn't just grow up poor, she grew up in what she called abject poverty. Born in South Carolina and raised in Central Falls, Rhode Island, her family lived in a crumbling apartment where rats ran through the walls and even into the baby crib. There were 6 kids, and food was never guaranteed. Viola said they were always hungry and had to sometimes steal or dig through trash to eat. At school, she was bullied for being poor. She wore clothes that didn't fit, and classmates mocked her for smelling like urine, something she said came from not having running water at times. She didn't grow up dreaming of Hollywood. Acting was just a way out, a way to escape. She started performing in high school, then pushed herself all the way to Juilliard, where she felt out of place among wealthier students. But she kept going. Her early career wasn't glamorous either. She often played roles without names, nurse number 2 or social worker, the kind of parts Hollywood gives to black women just to fill space. But she kept showing up. In 2008, she had one scene in Doubt, just one, but she made it count. Opposite Meryl Streep, she delivered 6 minutes of emotion so raw, it earned her an Oscar nomination. Then came The Help Fence's How to Get Away with Murder. With each role, she climbed higher and made Hollywood take notice. Still, she never hides where she came from. In interviews, she talks openly about food stamps, shame, and the nights she went to bed cold. She once said, "I have a memory of poverty that is so profound. It's who I am." What's wild is, she never let it make her bitter. Viola turned all that pain into power. Her story isn't about escaping poverty, it's about owning it and still rising. Glen Powell's Hollywood rejection years. He might look like the golden boy now, but his early Hollywood years were brutal. He moved to Los Angeles full of hope, thinking he'd land roles fast. Instead, crickets. For years, Powell couldn't book anything meaningful. He called it the dark years. He had a few one-line roles in shows and movies no one remembers. His bank account was empty. He was going on auditions during the day and bartending at night just to keep the lights on. The worst part? He kept hearing the same thing. He was too clean-cut, not edgy enough, or just not what we're looking for. Directors would tell him he was great but still pick someone else. It got to the point where he started lying to friends and family, pretending things were going well. He later said, "You have to lie to yourself too, or you'll quit." At one point, Powell considered walking away from acting completely. He thought about going into writing or producing instead. But then came Everybody Wants Some, a small film that gave him just enough attention to stay in the game. The real turning point came with Top Gun, Maverick. Powell didn't get the lead. He auditioned for the role that went to Miles Teller. But Tom Cruise saw something in him and gave him the part of Hangman. That role changed everything. Suddenly, people were calling, scripts started landing in his inbox, and the kid who once lied to himself to survive, now he's one of the most in-demand actors in Hollywood. Powell has talked openly about how brutal it was to be broke and unknown in a town full of stars. "It's not glamorous when you're failing quietly," he said, but he didn't quit. He played the long game and won. Rod Steiger fought demons off-screen. He was one of Hollywood's most powerful performers, but behind the camera, his life was chaos. He didn't just play broken men, he was one. Born in 1925 in New York, Rod never knew his father. His mother was an alcoholic. Home life was unstable, filled with neglect and emotional trauma. Later in life, Steiger said he experienced abuse as a child, physical, emotional, and though he rarely elaborated, possibly sexual. At 16, he joined the Navy and served during World War II. After the war, he used the GI Bill to study acting. It gave him structure and a way to process what he'd been through. Rod had range. He played troubled souls and outcasts like nobody else. His breakout came in On the Waterfront in 1954. Critics loved him. But even with success, he struggled off-screen. In the 60s, he won an Oscar for In the Heat of the Night, playing a Southern police chief opposite Sidney Poitier. The role was huge. But behind the scenes, Rod was battling depression and alcohol addiction. He often clashed with directors, burned bridges, and pushed people away. By the 80s, the phone stopped ringing. His mental health got worse. He gained weight. He isolated himself. At his lowest, he admitted to contemplating taking his own life. But Rod fought back. He got treatment. He started taking smaller roles, building himself back up. He later became a vocal advocate for mental health, long before it was a public conversation. He didn't glamorize his past. He owned it. When he died in 2002, he'd appeared in over 100 films. He wasn't always easy to work with. He wasn't always okay. But he left behind some of the rawest, most honest performances ever put on screen. No one believed in Marlee Matlin. She lost almost all her hearing at just 18 months old. Doctors blamed it on a high fever. Others thought it might have been genetic. Either way, she was deaf, and people immediately began underestimating her. She grew up in Illinois and started acting at a young age in a children's theater group for kids who were deaf. She loved the stage, but even as a kid, she got the message loud and clear. Hollywood wasn't made for people like her. Casting directors didn't know what to do with her. Many thought a deaf actress couldn't be taken seriously, couldn't carry a film, couldn't be a star. She proved them wrong, fast. In 1986, at just 21, Marlee landed the lead role in Children of a Lesser God. She wasn't a big name, she wasn't even expected to be nominated, but she gave a performance that left people speechless, and took home the Oscar for Best Actress, still the youngest ever to win in that category, and the only deaf actor to win an Academy Award. But that didn't mean the doors flew open. After the Oscar, roles didn't pour in like people expected. Some producers saw her as a one-time thing. She kept getting passed over, told she was too difficult to cast. Some even suggested she take speech therapy to sound more normal. On top of that, she faced battles off-screen too: substance use, a toxic relationship with actor William Hurt, and the constant pressure of being a representative for the entire deaf community. Still, she stayed in the game. TV roles, advocacy work, and eventually a major comeback in Coda. That film, which starred deaf actors and used American Sign Language throughout, won Best Picture in 2022. Marlee's story isn't about overcoming deafness. It's about pushing back against the people who said her deafness made her less. She didn't just break a barrier, she smashed through it with a full-body tackle. Cheryl Lee Ralph was bullied hard. She was always a performer, but before she became a Tony nominee or Emmy winner, she spent her childhood being bullied for the very things that made her great. She was born in Connecticut to a Jamaican mother and African-American father. In school, she stuck out. Her features, her voice, even the way she walked became targets. Kids called her Ugmo, a word she says still haunts her. She spoke with a strong voice and confidence that made others uncomfortable. Instead of lifting her up, they tried to tear her down. At one point, the bullying got so intense that she stopped speaking altogether. For months, she just shut down. No stage, no performances, nothing. Her sparkle dimmed, but something shifted when she got involved in theater. Teachers encouraged her to sing and speak. Slowly, her voice came back, not just literally, but emotionally. She leaned into the very traits she was once mocked for. She enrolled at Rutgers and became the youngest woman ever to graduate from its College of Arts. From there, she booked a lead role in Dreamgirls on Broadway at just 25. That show was massive. Her voice? Unmissable. Still, the criticism didn't stop. People told her she didn't fit Hollywood's idea of beauty. She didn't have the right look, too strong, too opinionated, too much. But she didn't bend. She kept working year after year, TV shows, stage productions, films. She even started programs for youth, focusing on HIV awareness and advocacy. Then came Abbott Elementary, a late career smash. Her role as Barbara Howard reminded everyone that black women with poise, presence, and power deserve the spotlight. When she won the Emmy in 2022, she sang her acceptance speech. That voice? The same one she was bullied for as a kid. Cheryl didn't silence herself to fit in. She got louder and made everyone else listen. Kojo Dadson's onset stroke. He was a staple of Ghanaian television. Fans loved him in shows like Home Sweet Home and Sun City. He was charming, witty, and always on point. But in 2012, everything changed, right in the middle of a shoot. He was filming a scene when his body suddenly gave out. It wasn't exhaustion, it was a stroke. Cast and crew rushed to help. He was taken to the hospital where doctors confirmed he'd had a severe stroke that affected his speech and mobility. Just like that, his career hit a wall. Recovery was slow. He had to relearn basic tasks: how to speak, how to move, how to hold a pen. The man who once delivered monologues with ease could barely form full sentences. He used a wheelchair. His public appearances stopped. For years, fans didn't see or hear from him. Many thought his career was over, but Kojo had other plans. He started appearing again at events, award shows, and interviews. His speech wasn't the same, but he didn't let that stop him. He even started painting and writing poetry, showing the world that he was still creating, still expressing himself, even if it looked different now. What made it more powerful? He never tried to hide his condition. In a culture where disability often gets pushed aside, Kojo stayed visible. He reminded people that worth doesn't vanish after illness, that life doesn't stop because the spotlight dims. In 2021, Kojo passed away, just one day after his wife died. The news stunned fans. But his legacy wasn't just in the scripts he wrote or the roles he played. It was in his comeback, his refusal to disappear, his honesty about what it means to lose everything and still show up anyway. Jennifer Lopez saw herself in the script. She has played dancers, pop stars, hustlers, and detectives, but nothing prepared her for Unstoppable. In the upcoming film, she plays Judy Robles, the real-life mother of Anthony Robles, a wrestler born with one leg who became an NCAA champion. The role wasn't flashy, it wasn't glamorous, but it hit Lopez hard because it felt personal. In interviews, she said the character reminded her of her own mom, tough, relentless, and full of quiet power. Judy fought for her son when schools didn't want to accommodate him, when coaches doubted him, and when the world expected less. She refused to let his disability define his future. Lopez understood that energy. At 18, she left home to pursue her career. Her mother didn't approve, and for a while, she had nowhere to stay. She crashed at her dance studio, slept on the couch, and scraped by on backup gigs until someone gave her a shot. She said that playing Judy wasn't acting, it was reliving. The doubt, the hustle, the fight to be taken seriously in a world that counts you out. That was her reality too. Behind the scenes, Lopez spent time with Judy and Anthony to understand their bond. She studied their dynamic, their routines, and the emotional load of fighting a system that doesn't always support disabled athletes or the parents behind them. The movie hasn't been released yet, but Lopez has already called it one of her most meaningful roles, not because it's Oscar bait or career-defining, but because it forced her to remember where she came from. For someone who's often seen as a pop culture icon, this was different. It was raw, human, and for Lopez, that mattered more than the glam. She didn't just want to act like Judy Robles, she wanted to honor her, and in doing so, she honored every mother and every kid who's had to fight twice as hard just to get a chance. These Hollywood stars are some of the greats from the Golden Age era, but don't be fooled. A lot of them had dark and unpleasant sides they conveniently hid from the public eye. Sadly, this gave them some nasty reputations that stand side by side with their immense contributions to the industry. Lana Turner. She was born Julia Jean Turner on February 8, 1921, in Wallace, Idaho, and Lana embodied the quintessential Hollywood starlet, known for her stunning beauty and captivating screen presence. However, her personal life, fraught with scandal and tragedy, often overshadowed her cinematic achievements. Turner's entry into Hollywood was nothing short of a fairy tale. Discovered at the age of 16 while sipping a soda at a Hollywood soda fountain, she was quickly signed by Warner Brothers. Her breakthrough came with the film They Won't Forget, 1937, which showcased her talent and allure. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Turner became one of MGM's most bankable stars, with notable performances in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946, and Peyton Place, 1957, for which she received an Academy Award nomination. Despite her professional success, Turner's off-screen life was marred by a series of scandals and personal tragedies that kept her in the public eye for all the wrong reasons. Her romantic relationships were a significant source of controversy. Turner was married 8 times to 7 different men, each relationship marked by drama and public scrutiny. Her tumultuous love life contributed to her bad girl image, making headlines with every new affair and breakup. The most infamous scandal of Turner's life was the murder of her lover, Johnny Stompanato, in 1958. Stompanato, a mobster with ties to the Los Angeles underworld, was killed by Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, in what was ruled as a justifiable homicide. Crane claimed she acted in defense of her mother during a violent argument. The sensational trial and media frenzy that followed painted Turner as a tragic figure ensnared in a web of violence and scandal. Turner's numerous affairs also added to her notorious reputation. She was linked romantically with many high-profile men, including actors, musicians, and businessmen. These relationships were often turbulent and highly publicized, reinforcing her image as a glamorous but troubled star. Her affair with actor Tyrone Power, while both were married to others, was particularly scandalous and captured the imagination of the tabloid press. Turner's personal tragedies did not end with her romantic entanglements. She faced several health issues, including bouts of alcoholism and an addiction to prescription drugs. Her struggles with substance abuse further complicated her life and career, leading to professional setbacks and personal anguish. In the midst of these scandals, Turner continued to work, delivering memorable performances that reminded audiences of her talent and resilience. Films like Imitation of Life, 1959, highlighted her ability to portray complex, emotionally charged characters, drawing on her own life experiences. Gloria Swanson. Gloria was born Gloria May Josephine Swanson on March 27, 1899 in Chicago, Illinois, and seemed destined for the spotlight. Raised in a military family that moved frequently, Swanson's early life was marked by a sense of adventure and constant change. Her entry into the world of entertainment came almost by accident when she visited a movie studio in Chicago at the age of 15. Enchanted by the nascent film industry, Swanson quickly found herself in front of the camera, starting with minor roles in silent films. Swanson's career took off when she signed with Paramount Pictures in 1919. Her beauty, charm, and talent quickly made her one of the most popular actresses of the silent film era. She starred in a series of successful films, including Male and Female, 1919, Why Change Your Wife, 1920, and Beyond the Rocks, 1922, often playing sophisticated and glamorous women. By the 1920s, Swanson had become a symbol of Hollywood glamour, commanding a salary of $20,000 a week and living a life of opulence and extravagance. However, Swanson's ascent to stardom was accompanied by a reputation for being demanding and self-centered. Her insistence on control over her films and her diva-like behavior on set earned her the label of a prima donna. Swanson was known for her meticulous attention to detail and her desire to have a say in every aspect of her films. She often clashed with directors and producers over creative decisions, insisting on having things her way. This insistence on control was seen as both a testament to her commitment to quality and a sign of her demanding nature. During the production of Queen Kelly, 1929, directed by Erich von Stroheim, Swanson's demands and disagreements with von Stroheim over the film's direction led to significant delays and budget overruns. The film eventually went unfinished and was a financial disaster, contributing to Swanson's difficult reputation. Her off-screen behavior also contributed to her prima donna image. She was known for her lavish lifestyle and penchant for luxury, which often set her apart from her peers. Her demands for special treatment and her aloof demeanor were frequently noted by those who worked with her. Swanson's demands for elaborate costumes and sets were legendary. For the film The Love of Sunya, 1927, she insisted on wearing a pearl-studded gown that cost a fortune to make. Such extravagances were part of her larger-than-life persona, but also reinforced her reputation as a self-centered star. Swanson's extravagant lifestyle extended beyond her professional life. Her financial mismanagement and lavish spending were often criticized and led to significant financial troubles throughout her career. Her love for luxury knew no bounds. She lived in a grand mansion, threw extravagant parties, and surrounded herself with the finest things money could buy. This lifestyle, while glamorous, was unsustainable and led to financial difficulties. Swanson's penchant for luxury led her to invest heavily in opulent homes, jewelry, and high fashion. Her Beverly Hills mansion, complete with a ballroom and swimming pool, was a testament to her love of opulence. Despite her high earnings, Swanson struggled with financial management. Her investments in various business ventures, including a failed attempt to produce her own films, drained her resources. Her spending often outpaced her income, leading to significant debt. Swanson's attempt to produce and star in her own films through her production company, Gloria Productions, was a financial disaster. The failure of Queen Kelly and other projects left her deeply in debt, forcing her to declare bankruptcy in the 1930s. Despite these challenges, Swanson continued to work in Hollywood, though her star had faded by the 1940s. Her career saw a remarkable resurgence with her iconic role as Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, 1950. The role, which mirrored her own journey from stardom to obscurity, earned her critical acclaim and revitalized her career. Marlene Dietrich. Marlee Matlin Dietrich was born on December 27, 1901, in Berlin, Germany. She was a woman of enigmatic charm and unparalleled allure. Her career in Hollywood began in the late 1920s and quickly flourished, making her one of the most iconic figures of the Golden Age cinema. Her fascinating personality was not just limited to her on-screen persona, her off-screen life as well, marked by a reputation for being cold and calculating. Dietrich's journey to stardom started in the cabarets and theaters of Weimar Berlin, where her distinctive voice and androgynous style caught the attention of filmmaker Josef von Sternberg. He cast her in The Blue Angel, 1930, a role that would propel her to international fame. Dietrich followed von Sternberg to Hollywood, where she starred in a series of films that cemented her status as a screen legend, including Morocco, 1930, Shanghai Express, 1932, and Desire, 1936. Despite her professional success, Dietrich's personal life was riddled with controversy. She was often seen as cold and calculating, a reputation that was partly a result of her manipulative tendencies. Dietrich was known to manipulate people and situations to her advantage, using her charm and intelligence to maintain her position in the fiercely competitive world of Hollywood. Her manipulative nature was evident in her professional relationships. Dietrich's collaborations with Josef von Sternberg, for example, were marked by her ability to assert control over her image and career. She meticulously crafted her public persona, ensuring that she remained a subject of fascination and admiration. Her relationships with powerful figures in the film industry also demonstrated her ability to navigate and influence the dynamics of Hollywood to her benefit. In addition to her manipulative tendencies, Dietrich's numerous affairs were a significant source of scandal. Her sexual openness was considered provocative and shocking for the time, as she defied conventional norms and embraced her desires with unapologetic boldness. Dietrich's affairs were not limited to men. She was known to have relationships with both men and women, further challenging the societal norms of her era. Dietrich's affairs with high-profile figures such as actor John Gilbert, French actor Jean Gabin, and American writer Erich Maria Remarque were well publicized and added to her scandalous reputation. Her relationships often overlapped, and she maintained a sense of mystery about her private life that kept the public intrigued. Her openness about her bisexuality was particularly controversial in an era when such matters were rarely discussed openly. Her sexual liberation and numerous affairs contributed to her image as a rebellious and unconventional figure. While this added to her allure, it also fueled perceptions of her as a calculating and cold individual who used her relationships for personal gain. Dietrich's ability to captivate and manipulate those around her, combined with her disregard for traditional moral standards, cemented her reputation as a complex and often controversial figure. Marlene Dietrich's life and career were a blend of calculated brilliance and unapologetic boldness. Her reputation for being cold and calculating was shaped by her manipulative tendencies and her numerous affairs, which challenged the social norms of her time. Despite, or perhaps because of these qualities, she remains one of the most enduring icons of Hollywood's golden age. Joan Crawford. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur on March 23, 1904, in San Antonio, Texas, she is remembered as one of the most iconic actresses of Hollywood's golden age. With a career spanning over 5 decades, she captivated audiences with her performances in films such as Grand Hotel, 1932, The Women, 1939, and Mildred Pierce, 1945, for which she won an Academy Award for Best Actress. However, beneath the glamour and success lay a darker, more controversial legacy, particularly surrounding her tumultuous relationship with her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford. Joan Crawford's personal life has been the subject of much scrutiny and speculation, often overshadowing her professional achievements. Her reputation for being evil is primarily rooted in the allegations of abuse and manipulation made by her daughter, Christina. These allegations were brought to light in Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, published in 1978, a year after Joan's death. The book painted a harrowing picture of Joan as a cruel, abusive, and emotionally volatile mother, a stark contrast to her public persona. One of the most shocking aspects of Joan Crawford's alleged mistreatment of Christina was her attempt to cut her daughter out of her will. Joan adopted Christina in 1940, hoping to create a picture-perfect family to bolster her image as a caring and loving mother. However, their relationship was fraught with conflict and animosity, which only intensified as Christina grew older. Joan's disinheritance of Christina became a significant point of contention after Joan's death in 1977. The contents of Joan's will revealed that she had deliberately excluded Christina and her adopted son, Christopher, from any inheritance. The will stated, "It is my intention to make no provision herein for my son Christopher or my daughter Christina for reasons which are well known to them." This exclusion was a final act of estrangement, cementing the perception of Joan as a vindictive and controlling figure. The attempt to cut Christina out of the will can be seen as a culmination of their long-standing, tumultuous relationship. According to Christina, Joan's actions were driven by jealousy, control, and a desire to maintain a spotless public image. Christina's memoir recounts numerous instances of physical and emotional abuse, suggesting that Joan's decision to disinherit her was yet another way to exert control and inflict emotional pain. Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, and its subsequent film adaptation further solidified Joan Crawford's reputation as an evil figure in Hollywood lore. The book's vivid descriptions of Joan's erratic and abusive behavior shocked the public and led to a reassessment of her personality. Scenes depicting Joan's violent outbursts, such as the infamous No Wire Hangers incident, became a representation of her alleged cruelty. Bing Crosby. Born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. on May 3, 1903 in Tacoma, Washington, Crosby was a towering figure in 20th century entertainment, renowned for his smooth voice, charismatic persona, and enduring influence in music and film. Emerging during Hollywood's golden age, Crosby's career spanned decades, leaving an indelible mark on both popular culture and the industry itself. Crosby's ascent to fame began with his distinctive baritone voice, which propelled him to become one of the best-selling recording artists of all time. Hits like White Christmas and Swinging on a Star cemented his place as a musical icon, while his film roles in beloved classics such as Going My Way, 1944, and The Bells of St. Mary's, 1945, showcased his versatile talent on screen. Behind the scenes, however, Crosby's personal life was marked by tumult, particularly in his relationships with his children from his first marriage to Dixie Lee. The couple had 4 sons, Gary, twins Philip and Dennis, and Lindsay. While Crosby projected a wholesome and affable image to the public, his parenting style was reportedly strict and, as later revealed, often abusive. Gary Crosby's memoir, Going My Own Way, published in 1983, provided a candid and harrowing account of life within the Crosby household. Gary detailed how his father disciplined his sons with physical punishment, including beatings with a belt. This harsh treatment left deep emotional scars on the Crosby children, shaping their relationships with their father and each other for years to come. The impact of Crosby's parenting became tragically evident in the lives of 2 of his sons. Dennis Crosby, struggling with personal demons, died in 1991 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Lindsay Crosby, haunted by his family's reputation and facing his own challenges, died in 1989 under circumstances that suggested suicide. These deaths underscored the profound and lasting effects of Crosby's troubled and evil parenting style. Bette Davis. Bette Davis, born Ruth Elizabeth Davis on April 5, 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts, is celebrated as one of the most formidable actresses of Hollywood's golden age. Renowned for her unparalleled talent and intense performances on screen, Davis's off-screen persona was equally powerful and complex. Davis was notorious for her strong-willed personality and fierce independence, traits that often put her at odds with studio executives and directors. Throughout her career, she clashed with Hollywood's hierarchy, asserting her creative vision and refusing to compromise on her principles. Her insistence on controlling her career path and roles sometimes led to confrontations and disagreements that became legendary in Hollywood lore. One example of Davis's combative nature was her infamous feud with Joan Crawford during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962. The rivalry between the 2 actresses, stemming from personal and professional differences, intensified on set and added a palpable tension to their performances. Their animosity was well documented and became a focal point of media attention at the time. Davis's relationships with co-stars were often colored by her assertiveness and willingness to challenge others. She was known for her strong opinions and high expectations, which could create friction during production. Her desire to fully embody her characters sometimes required pushing boundaries and demanding excellence from herself and those around her. Despite any conflicts behind the scenes, Davis's commitment to her craft was unwavering. Her performances in iconic films such as All About Eve, 1950, where she played the sharp-tongued Margot Channing, and Jezebel, 1938, which earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, showcased her ability to portray complex, multidimensional women who defied conventions. Errol Flynn. Born on June 20, 1909 in Tasmania, Australia, Flynn became a Hollywood icon during the golden age of cinema. Known for his charismatic screen presence and swashbuckling roles in films like Captain Blood, 1935, and The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, Flynn projected an image of daring adventure and charm that captivated audiences worldwide. However, behind the silver screen, Flynn's personal life was marked by controversies and scandals that earned him a reputation for being morally questionable or evil. One of the primary reasons for Flynn's controversial reputation was his involvement in legal troubles, particularly allegations of statutory rape. In 1942, Flynn was accused of statutory rape by two teenage girls, leading to a highly publicized trial that tarnished his image. Despite being acquitted due to lack of evidence, the accusations cast a shadow over his career and raised questions about his conduct with women off-screen. Flynn's personal life was also characterized by a hedonistic lifestyle. He was known for his excessive drinking, womanizing, and indulgence in various vices, which contributed to his image as a Hollywood playboy. His parties were legendary for their extravagance, and he had numerous affairs with actresses, socialites, and other women, which fueled gossip and controversy throughout his career. Barbara Stanwyck. Born in Brooklyn, New York as Ruby Catherine Stevens on July 16, 1907, Barbara lived a life filled with drive and determination. Orphaned at a young age, she was raised in foster homes and by an elder sister. These early hardships forged a character that would become synonymous with strength and independence in Hollywood. Stanwyck's journey to stardom began in the nightclubs and theaters of New York, where she worked as a chorus girl. Her big break came in 1927 with the Broadway play Burlesque, a role that caught the attention of Hollywood scouts. By the late 1920s, she had moved to Hollywood and made her film debut in Broadway Nights. As the film industry transitioned from silent films to talkies, Stanwyck quickly established herself as a leading lady, thanks to her versatility and compelling performances. Despite her success, Stanwyck's off-screen reputation was complex. She was known for her professionalism and dedication to her craft, traits that sometimes led to perceptions of her being difficult or cold. Her intense focus on her career often took precedence over personal relationships, creating an aura of ruthlessness. Colleagues frequently described her as demanding and uncompromising, particularly when it came to her work. This relentless drive was evident in films like Stella Dallas, 1937, where her performance earned her an Academy Award nomination. Her commitment to her roles was unwavering, setting high standards for herself and those around her. While this dedication garnered respect, it also created tensions with co-stars and directors who found her formidable presence challenging. The demands of Hollywood could cripple any average person, but those who succeed are the ones who are not just talented but push beyond the boundaries to make it and are celebrated for it. But the truth remains that some of these Hollywood stars relied on several methods to help them cope. The most popular of all was found at the bottom of the bottle. Sadly, the poison of excessive alcohol caught up with most of these actors. William Claude Dukenfield. He rose to fame as a silent juggler, known for his raspy drawl and sophisticated vocabulary. Despite his on-screen fondness for alcohol, which he portrayed convincingly, the actor surprisingly abstained from drinking until he felt the isolation of constant travel. Eventually, loneliness caught up with him, leading him to keep alcohol in his dressing room and eventually develop a regular drinking habit after retiring from juggling. If there was one role that cemented his reputation as an alcoholic, it was his portrayal of Professor Henry R. Quayle in the 1933 pre-code comedy International House. In the film, he played an aviator with an insatiable thirst for beer, a trait he began to adopt in real life. Like many actors of his time, he sometimes filmed scenes while intoxicated, yet this often added an intriguing edge to his performances that audiences loved. Sadly, his career declined slowly, and he spent the last 22 months of his life in a California sanitarium, passing away at the age of 66 on Christmas. Moving on to another tragic figure, William Holden, a multi-award-winning actor who faced perhaps the most tragic ending among the actors mentioned here. Holden achieved acclaim with prestigious awards such as the Academy Award for Best Actor and the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Anthology Series or Movie. His career flourished with several successful films and roles that made him a beloved figure in Hollywood. However, as the 1960s arrived, he found himself competing with a new generation of actors while his own popularity began to wane. This decline coincided with his increasing reliance on alcohol, a struggle that became an open secret in Hollywood circles for years. Despite his reputation, Holden remained dedicated to his craft, continuing to accept challenging roles until the end. His tragic death occurred on November 12, 1981, when he suffered a fatal fall at home, hitting his head and bleeding to death. The Los Angeles County coroner's autopsy later confirmed he was intoxicated at the time of the accident, underscoring the poignant end to his illustrious career. These stories highlight the complex lives and struggles faced by some of Hollywood's most talented and celebrated actors. Ramon Novarro. Born José Ramón Gil Samaniego on February 6, 1899 in Durango, Mexico, Ramon Novarro rose to fame as one of the leading actors during Hollywood's silent film era. His career spanned from the 1910s through the early talkies of the 1930s, establishing him as a charismatic and talented performer. Novarro's early success was marked by his roles in films such as Ben-Hur, 1925, where he portrayed the titular character with vigor and emotional depth, solidifying his status as a matinee idol. Despite his on-screen triumphs, Novarro battled personal demons throughout his life, notably alcoholism. The pressures of fame and the demanding Hollywood lifestyle exacerbated his struggles with addiction, leading to periods of erratic behavior and personal turmoil. Behind the scenes, Novarro's challenges with alcohol impacted his relationships and career trajectory, often overshadowing his professional accomplishments. Throughout the 1930s, as Hollywood transitioned to sound films, Novarro faced increasing competition and changing audience tastes. His roles became less frequent, and the industry's shift posed additional challenges for his career. Despite attempts to revive his star status, including ventures into character roles in theater, Novarro's personal battles with alcohol continued to hinder his professional endeavors. Beyond his career struggles, Novarro's personal life also bore the scars of his addiction. He grappled with strained relationships and financial instability, further complicating his journey. Despite efforts to seek treatment and intermittent periods of sobriety, Novarro's addiction remained a persistent force in his life until his tragic death. In 1968, at the age of 69, Ramon Novarro's life came to a tragic end when he was brutally murdered in his home. The circumstances surrounding his death highlighted the dark undercurrents of his final years, underscoring the profound impact of his lifelong battle with alcoholism on both his personal and professional life. Marion Davies. Born Marion Cecilia Duras on January 3, 1897 in Brooklyn, New York, Marion Davies emerged as a prominent actress during Hollywood's golden age. Known for her comedic talent and versatility, Davies captivated audiences with her performances in silent films and later in talkies. Her career flourished under the patronage of media mogul William Randolph Hearst, with whom she had a complex and influential relationship. Despite her professional success and charm on screen, Davies faced personal challenges, most notably her struggle with alcoholism. The pressures of fame, coupled with the tumultuous dynamics of her relationship with Hearst, contributed to her reliance on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Throughout her Hollywood career, Davies battled periods of addiction, which at times overshadowed her achievements in film. Davies's association with Hearst, who exerted significant influence over her career and public image, added layers of complexity to her personal life. Despite her efforts to maintain a public facade of glamour and success, behind the scenes, Davies grappled with the private burden of addiction. Her struggles with alcoholism strained relationships and occasionally disrupted her work, reflecting the toll of her dependency. In later years, Davies' battle with alcoholism became a part of her legacy, intertwined with her contributions to early Hollywood cinema. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities faced by women in the entertainment industry during the early 20th century, navigating between personal struggles and professional aspirations amidst the glare of public scrutiny. Marion Davies passed away on September 22, 1961, leaving behind a legacy marked by her talent, resilience, and the enduring impact of her performances. Her journey through fame, intertwined with the challenges of addiction, remains a compelling chapter in the history of vintage Hollywood. Franchot Tone. Born Stanislaus Pascal Franchot Tone on February 27, 1905, in Niagara Falls, New York, Franchot Tone established himself as a versatile actor known for his roles in classic Hollywood films. With a career spanning from the 1930s through the 1960s, Tone garnered acclaim for his ability to portray a wide range of characters with depth and sophistication. Despite his professional successes, Tone grappled with a persistent struggle with alcoholism throughout his career. The pressures of Hollywood's demanding schedules, coupled with the temptations of celebrity life, contributed to Tone's reliance on alcohol as a means of coping with the stresses of his career and personal life. Tone's battle with alcoholism often intersected with his professional endeavors, impacting his ability to maintain consistent work and affecting the quality of his performances at times. Despite his talent and dedication to his craft, periods of addiction led to sporadic career challenges and personal setbacks, underscoring the toll of his dependency on both his professional and personal life. Throughout the years, Tone made efforts to confront his addiction, seeking periods of sobriety and occasionally receiving treatment. However, the cyclical nature of alcoholism posed ongoing challenges, influencing his relationships and career trajectory in unpredictable ways. Despite these challenges, Tone's legacy endures through his memorable performances in films such as Mutiny on the Bounty, 1935, for which he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor in a Leading Role. His ability to bring depth and nuance to his characters despite personal struggles remains a testament to his talent and dedication to his craft. Franchot Tone passed away on September 18, 1968, leaving behind a legacy marked by his contributions to classic Hollywood cinema and the enduring impact of his performances. Preston Sturges. Born Edmund Preston Biden on August 29, 1898, in Chicago, Illinois, Preston Sturges became renowned in Hollywood for his sharp wit and comedic genius as a writer and director. During the 1940s, he achieved acclaim for his ability to blend sophisticated humor with social commentary, making him a pioneer in the screwball comedy genre. Despite his creative success, Sturges battled a persistent struggle with alcoholism that cast a shadow over his career. The demands of Hollywood's competitive and often tumultuous environment, combined with the pressures of maintaining a prolific output, contributed to Sturges's reliance on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Sturges's alcoholism affected his professional life in significant ways. At times, his addiction led to periods of erratic behavior and strained relationships with studio executives and collaborators. Despite his creative brilliance, the unpredictability stemming from his dependency occasionally disrupted production schedules and impacted the reception of his films. Throughout his career, Sturges made efforts to confront his addiction, often seeking periods of sobriety and attempting to channel his struggles into his creative work. However, the cyclical nature of alcoholism posed ongoing challenges influencing both his personal life and professional endeavors. Despite these challenges, Sturges left an indelible mark on Hollywood with films such as The Lady Eve, 1941, and Sullivan's Travels, 1941, which continue to be celebrated for their sharp dialogue, memorable characters, and satirical edge. His ability to inject wit and humor into his films, despite personal setbacks, remains a testament to his enduring talent and resilience in the face of adversity. Preston Sturges passed away on August 6, 1959. William Haynes. Born Charles William Haynes on January 2, 1900 in Staunton, Virginia, William Haynes rose to prominence as a charismatic and talented actor during Hollywood's silent film era. Known for his dashing good looks and comedic timing, Haynes quickly became a popular leading man in silent films, captivating audiences with his charm and on-screen presence. In the 1920s, Haynes's career soared with successful roles in films such as Brown of Harvard, 1926, and Tell It to the Marines, 1926, establishing him as one of Hollywood's top stars. His popularity extended beyond his acting talents, as he became known for his off-screen persona as a fashionable and openly gay celebrity, which was rare and controversial for the time. However, despite his early successes, Haynes faced personal challenges that would impact his career trajectory. His struggles with alcoholism began to emerge as a significant issue, exacerbated by the pressures of Hollywood's competitive and demanding environment. As the industry transitioned to talkies in the late 1920s and early 1930s, Haynes found it increasingly difficult to maintain his status as a leading man. Haynes's dependency on alcohol contributed to a decline in his career opportunities. Studios, concerned about his reliability and public image, began to withdraw offers for leading roles. Despite attempts to continue acting in supporting roles and comedy films, Haynes's career never fully recovered from the impact of his addiction. In 1933, faced with dwindling prospects in Hollywood, Haynes made the difficult decision to retire from acting. He transitioned into a successful second career as an interior designer, leveraging his eye for style and creativity to become highly sought after among Hollywood's elite. Despite the challenges posed by alcoholism, William Haynes left a lasting legacy in both Hollywood and interior design. His early contributions to silent and early talkie cinema continue to be appreciated for their wit and charm, while his influence on interior design aesthetics remains influential to this day. William Haynes passed away on December 26, 1973, leaving behind a legacy that reflects both the highs of Hollywood stardom and the personal struggles that shaped his journey. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities faced by stars in navigating fame, personal identity, and the pressures of addiction during Hollywood's golden age. Bela Lugosi. Born Bela Ferenc Dezoblasco on October 20, 1882, in Lugos, Kingdom of Hungary, now Lugoj, Romania, Bela Lugosi achieved international fame as an iconic actor in horror cinema, notably for his definitive portrayal of Count Dracula in the 1931 film adaptation. Lugosi's commanding presence, captivating accent, and theatrical charisma made him synonymous with the role of the vampire count, solidifying his status as a horror film legend. Despite his success and enduring legacy in the horror genre, Lugosi faced personal demons that impacted his Hollywood career. Throughout his time in the spotlight, Lugosi battled a profound addiction to alcohol, which exacerbated his struggles with mental health and impacted his professional endeavors. The pressures of maintaining a public persona as the master of macabre took a toll on Lugosi, leading him to rely on alcohol as a coping mechanism. His addiction often resulted in erratic behavior and strained relationships within the industry, hindering his ability to capitalize fully on his early success as Dracula. Despite periodic attempts to seek treatment and regain control over his addiction, including brief periods of sobriety, Lugosi's battle with alcoholism persisted throughout his life. The cyclical nature of addiction frequently interrupted his career momentum and led to missed opportunities in Hollywood. Nevertheless, Lugosi's impact on the horror genre remains undeniable. Beyond his iconic portrayal of Dracula, he continued to appear in numerous horror films and gained a dedicated fan following for his distinctive style and magnetic screen presence. His ability to evoke both fear and sympathy from audiences solidified his place in cinematic history. Bela Lugosi passed away on August 16, 1956, leaving behind a legacy marked by his contributions to horror cinema and the enduring influence of his portrayal of Count Dracula. His story serves as a reminder of the complexities faced by actors in navigating fame, personal challenges, and the enduring allure of Hollywood's darker realms. Dorothy Mackaill. Born Dorothy Davenport on March 4, 1903 in Kingston upon Hull, England, Dorothy Mackaill was a talented actress who made her mark during Hollywood's silent film era and early talkies. Known for her beauty, versatility, and on-screen presence, Mackaill captivated audiences with her performances in a variety of roles, ranging from romantic comedies to dramas. Despite her professional successes, Mackaill faced personal challenges that would impact her career and personal life. Like many in Hollywood during her time, she struggled with alcohol addiction, which became a persistent issue throughout her career. The pressures of maintaining a public image, combined with the demanding and competitive nature of the film industry, contributed to her reliance on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Mackaill's addiction affected her ability to secure consistent and substantial roles in Hollywood. Despite her talent and appeal, periods of dependency led to erratic behavior and professional setbacks, hampering her career trajectory and limiting opportunities for significant roles. Throughout her life, Mackaill made efforts to confront her addiction, seeking treatment and periods of sobriety. However, the cyclical nature of alcoholism posed ongoing challenges, impacting both her personal life and professional endeavors. Despite the difficulties posed by her addiction, Dorothy Mackaill left behind a legacy of memorable performances and contributions to early Hollywood cinema. Her ability to captivate audiences with her charm and versatility continues to be appreciated by film enthusiasts, highlighting her enduring impact on the industry. Dorothy Mackaill passed away on August 12, 1990, leaving behind a legacy marked by her talent, resilience, and the complexities of navigating fame and personal challenges during Hollywood's golden age. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of the pressures faced by actors and actresses in the early days of cinema and the personal toll of addiction on their lives and careers. Louise Brooks. Born Mary Louise Brooks on November 14, 1906, in Cherryvale, Kansas, Louise Brooks emerged as an iconic figure in silent film history, celebrated for her distinctive bob haircut and magnetic screen presence. Her breakthrough role in G.W. Pabst's Pandora's Box, 1929, solidified her status as a symbol of the liberated and modern woman of the 1920s. Despite her early success and enduring influence on cinema, Brooks faced profound personal struggles throughout her life. Among these challenges were battles with alcoholism and mental health issues, which cast shadows over her career and personal relationships. The pressures of fame and the demanding nature of the film industry contributed to Brooks's reliance on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Her addiction occasionally led to erratic behavior and strained professional opportunities, impacting her ability to capitalize fully on her early acclaim. Beyond her struggles with alcoholism, Brooks also grappled with mental health issues, including bouts of depression and anxiety. These challenges added layers of complexity to her personal life and career, influencing her relationships and artistic pursuits. Louise Brooks passed away on August 8, 1985. Leaving behind a legacy marked by her artistic vision, personal struggles, and the enduring allure of her cinematic presence. Jeanne Eagels. Born Eugenia Eagles on June 26, 1890, in Kansas City, Missouri, Jeanne Eagles was a stage and film actress whose talent and intensity captivated audiences during the early 20th century. She gained acclaim for her powerful performances on Broadway and later transitioned to Hollywood, where she made a significant impact despite a tragically short film career. Eagles' breakthrough role came with her portrayal of Leslie Crosby in the 1929 film adaptation of W. Somerset Maugham's play, The Letter. Her performance as a woman embroiled in scandal and intrigue earned her widespread praise and a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actress, cementing her reputation as a formidable talent in both stage and screen. However, behind her professional success lay personal struggles that would profoundly affect her life and career. Throughout her adult life, Eagles battled with alcoholism and substance abuse, which often overshadowed her artistic achievements. The pressures of fame, coupled with the demanding nature of her work, contributed to her reliance on alcohol and drugs as coping mechanisms. Eagles' addiction issues led to periods of erratic behavior and strained relationships, both personal and professional. Despite efforts to seek treatment and intermittent periods of sobriety, her dependency continued to impact her ability to maintain a stable career trajectory and fully capitalize on her early successes. Despite these challenges, Eagles' talent and presence on stage and screen left an indelible mark on the entertainment industry. Her ability to portray complex characters with depth and emotional authenticity resonated deeply with audiences, showcasing her ability to capture the complexities of human emotion and frailty. Tragically, Jeanne Eagles' life was cut short at the age of 39 on October 3, 1929, due to complications from alcoholism and drug addiction. Her untimely death marked the premature end of a career that showed immense promise and potential, leaving behind a legacy defined by her talent, intensity, and the tragic consequences of addiction in the golden age of Hollywood.